And tributes have continued to pour in for former Super Eagles captain and head coach Christian Chukwu, expressing deep sorrow for his demise. The Nigeria Football Federation (NFF) says Chukwu's legacy in Nigeria football is immense, particularly for captaining the team to their first ever Africa Cup of Nations title in 1980. NFF General Secretary Dr. Mohammed Sanusi described Chukwu as a towering figure in Nigerian football, highlighting his strength, dedication and discipline as a leader on and off the field. Former teammates Emmanuel Okala and Shego Debami also paid tribute to Chukwu, mourning the loss of a football legend. In the meantime, the governor of Enugu State, Dr. Peter Mba, has expressed deep grief over the passing of the former Super Eagles skipper and coach, describing him as a football icon, titan and phenomenon. Well, joining us to discuss the life and times of the chairman, as he was fondly called, is a foremost sports analyst and former chairman of the editorial board of Vanguard newspaper, Ikeddy, Isiguzo. Ikeddy, glad to have you join me on Arise on Newsnight. By the way, it was his style, confidence, and leadership that got him the name from Ernest Okonkwo. Ernest Okonkwo was the person that called him chairman.
Yes, he did.
What's your, when you retrospect, what memories do you have come to you of Chairman Christian Chukwu?
Well, that's, it was a way of describing his command and control of the team. People respected him immensely, on and off the pitch. And I remember very well, most people in the stadium used to be packed in those days anyway, will be looking forward to the point when he will start moving forward. And as he moves, that's how he'll be pointing in different directions and so on, which had a way of also confusing the opponent because you wouldn't be quite sure where he will pass the ball. And there were many options then, very incredible players we had with him then, Adokie, Shegu, all of them, they were there, yeah, Muda Lawal and so on. So it got the opponent very well confused. And especially if we are winning at such moment, once he moves forward that way, the whole stadium will be roaring, you know. He was one of the players, most players who wear a shin guard to protect their shin. I don't think he ever wore one because you will see his socks will be down. You know, he'll be there pointing and everybody will be roaring. So, and as I said, they respected him. In fact, there had been incidents way after they've retired that people maybe said some things about him in the media and the way the players reacted. They could have their differences off the pitch, but they respected him immensely. So that's where that title chairman fitted very well. NS used to call him CCC, you know, Chairman Christian Chukwu, you know.
And of course, Ernest was one of the most wonderful commentators Nigeria ever had in football. He could create names, and in fact, he created English words. Corable, for example, that's not in the dictionary. It was due to Ernest Okonkwo. But we're talking about Chairman Christian Chukwu. I did not know that he was part of the team or the coaching staff that won Nigeria its first under 16, what you call baby Eagles.
Yes.
Headed by Sebastian Broderick.
Yes, he was, and then there was a third coach, Mayaki, also three of them. But something with Chukwu, Ndoko Ogbade actually told me this, you know, who eventually was the captain of that team. He said when he was growing up and seeing a bit of Chukwu on TV, he didn't quite believe there would be a moment when Chukwu would talk to him personally. So that while they were in camp, which is one of the things he attributed to the victory of the team, he said the players looked at figures like him. I mean, Broderick, many of them wouldn't have seen him play. Yeah. But they were looking at him and said, this man is talking to me. So that whatever he told them to do, or even the other coaches told them, they tried to impress him. You know, Ndoka was telling me this. And he was such a person, very humble, you know, approachable, and he cared for people. He had a generous spirit. You know, when we talk of people caring, people talking of sharing money. No, not really that. I mean, the way he would speak to people and so on and so forth.
He had a fatherly heart.
Yes, he had. And incredibly, Shego Degwami, with whom the two teams, Rangers and Shooting Stars, had a rivalry that brought the then chief of staff, supreme headquarters as they were known, like the vice president, Yaradua, to the national stadium. That 77 semi-final. First leg at the national stadium. Second one was going to end the draw. Second one was going to be so contentious that people didn't know how it would end up. So Yaradua had to come to the stadium. Sam Mujebode from the ICC side, Okala, Chukwu, and I think Odebami was the fourth person. And right in the center of the pitch, they took a picture, all holding the ball, to try to calm down the country then, because it was becoming, eventually the match was played in Kaduna, and the Rangers won by penalty, but Shooting Stars, the number of missed shots, hitting the bar in that match, it was incredible. But Shegu consistently was his roommate.
Oh, really?
Yes, he was the vice captain, so they shared room often. So with all that thing we see on the pitch and so on, they still go and sleep in the same rooms. More like what politicians do. We fight for the one.
We can't discuss the life and times of the chairman, as he was called, Chairman Christian Chukwu, CCC, as NS called him, without talking about his days, before we go into his coaching career, talking about his days playing with Rangers International Football Club.
Okay. What I remember very clearly about then is that, down in the East, coming out from the Civil War, people did not know what to expect. People didn't know what to expect. But for us in the East, Rangers, that team was all we had, as it were. So if Rangers got beaten in a match, it wasn't a good day. So, and the players themselves knew. So the level of commitment was incredible. And by the time he became captain, just out from secondary school, Nike, the one in academicals, joined the national team and all that. He became one of the symbols of that era.
Oh, he moved from
academicals.
Nike.
No, Nike Grammar School. That's the secondary school
Yeah,
he went to. Yes. So he became one of the symbols of that era. Chukwu wasn't someone you would be looking for in the pitch. He was there. The presence was there. And I'm trying to remember a game he did not play. Maybe he was injured or something. I can't remember.
Rangers.
Yeah. Yes, because there was a Super League match with Raka Rovers. When he went for a header and had a cut in the head, he still put a bandage around that head and went on to play with them. His commitment was incredible. And many of the players learned from that. They played from their heart. And then we would have all those comparisons they used to make then. It affected the national team a great deal. The players would be in camp for a very long time. Then maybe one of the clubs will have a continental game to play, or they have inter-club matches to play. Then there will be this argument who should be released. One Okala is equal to this. Degbami is two players. The opposing sides were making that argument. So in that era, I think it affected the national team too.
Okay.
Because question of who to release for club assignments and then to return for national assignments.
Yeah, then let's talk about, he coached, then of course he went on to become the coach of the Super Eagles.
Yes, after
and
Rangers.
Then went on to become the coach of Enugu Rangers International, which he eventually became an administrator, and then went on to coach the Kenyan national team.
Yes.
Let's talk about his coaching career.
Okay, in between, he also was technical advisor to Iwanya National.
Oh, yeah.
And that almost cost him his life 31 years ago. Many people forget that the plane crash in Algeria, when the national team went to play against Tunisia, Chukwu was in that plane, 18th September 1994. He was one of the survivors of that plane, of that crash. So when he was around, even out of joke and so on and so forth, we would tell him he was living on overtime, really. He survived that crash. His coaching career wasn't maybe as illustrious as many of us would have wanted it to be, but playing is quite different from coaching.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why someone like Odegbami, he said he will never coach. That he values his life. So it wasn't as illustrious as it would be, but he was also one of the few Nigerian coaches who got offers to handle national teams. He was a pioneer, as it were, in that when he went on to Kenya, to work in Kenya.
He also won bronze for Nigeria.
For Nigeria in the Nations Cup. But people will argue that we had such a team that they expected would have done better. But that's what the records were. But you cannot say anything bad about his commitment. No, for me, none of those things deducted from his commitment and passion.
Now, talking about that commitment and passion, you had people like Lawa, you had people like, of course, Chairman Odebami,
yes,
the Justice Amir Semaka,
yes,
and the rest of them. Their commitment to Nigerian football, to the national team, juxtapose it with what we have today. Is there any missing link, or what can they learn?
No, there have been so many changes with the times. One of the things that used to happen was that national team was in camp for as many months as you count. Odegbami, Odegbami had finished school. Adokie was at University of Lagos reading law. He was leaving from camp to go and do exams or things like that. The same thing with Ikeddy when he was in Nsukka. You know, so we had a team that was together. Always. It was a team in the sense of people waking up every day, knowing what people would do in practice and so on. That is one. Secondly, football, our own football then was developed enough that many people didn't even know you could go abroad to play, or there wasn't that urge or the need for it. The currency was good, the economy was good, and whatever thing they earn made their needs. When they win, they could get cars and so on. In 80, a house in Festac, 504, and a lot of money. People gave them a lot of money, that team. So it's quite different from that today. There are many opportunities, and everything today is global, you know. The economy, our economy is the way it is because it doesn't compete effectively from others. So, and we are living in the same world. So players who have skills, and even in other professions, they will go to where those skills could be paid for. It's not lack of commitment. And then, as I was saying, this issue of being together in camp, we don't have that. The players barely stay in camp they don't stay in camp for a week.
At all.
Before you get when you add travel time and all that, it does not work. You know, when we had the Eagles, then Green Eagles as they were known, they would be in camp for weeks, train together and form a team. So I don't think it's lack of commitment, but the changing times. Though I would suggest that those players can still do more.
Yeah, just before we go, just briefly, in less than 30 seconds or 45, immortalizing Chukwu.
Well, people just say things like that. I mean, in the next couple of days, you'll be hearing all types of things. But I think the best way to immortalize him is to have a facility where young people can learn to play football. Young people, and the philosophy around that would be to get those young people to imbibe the qualities Chukwu had, the discipline, the calmness, and the commitment and patriotism involved. You know, it becomes just a school for that, and it is done. Once the burials are done and so on, all these emotions, you're saying, they will just go. But it will be unfortunate if we go that way with Christian Chukwu.
Thank you so much. Former chairman of the editorial board of Vanguard newspaper, Ikeddy Isiguzo, for being on Newsnight.
Thank you very much.